I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Cryptid Podcast today. As always, I'm your host, Daniel. If you guys have had an encounter and like to come on the show, please email me at the cryptidpodcast72 at gmail.com. Again, the cryptidpodcast72 at gmail.com. Today, you guys, we got a really a phenomenal guest, I'm going to say. Had a chance to speak briefly with our guest, and she's had some pretty interesting encounters. A couple of that have involved her grandkids, her husband. I chuckled at that one. And she's actually kind of, you want to say, has built kind of a relationship with a visitor that has come around her property. I've got Becky, and she is from Illinois. Everybody, let's welcome Becky to the show. Hi, Becky.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing good.
All righty. So let's just go ahead and get on into the counters. From your email you had sent, you stated that in 2015 you had your first sighting.
Right, we had just moved out here. We're in the middle of a cornfield, and my grandson was out playing. He was fairly young. He was about 5, and he knows all about Bigfoot and hunting and all that kind of stuff because that's all we ever watch. And he come running in, and he says he just saw Bigfoot. And we kind of chuckled at him, and he was serious. He goes, it was Bigfoot. And so my husband says, well, describe it. He goes, he had all kinds of hair on him, and he even showed us how he walked. So it's like, okay, maybe it was his imagination, whatever, but we didn't pursue it. And so we just kind of let it go. A few days later, my husband's out working in the yard, and he sees some sticks laying by a tree, and he picks them up, and he goes, what the heck? I'm going to hit this tree. So he hits the tree, and a few minutes later, he gets a wood knocked back. It kind of bothered him a little bit. He says, I ain't doing this again. And then my son did the exact same thing a few days later. He goes, because my grandson says he saw a Bigfoot, he's going to hit a tree. Same thing. He hit the tree with a piece of wood, and he gets a wood knocked back. Kind of freaked him out. So they haven't done any tree knocks since. And this was back in 2015. My grandson wouldn't go outside and play after that by himself. He'd have to have one of us out there with him.
Really?
Yeah, he was too nervous to see Bigfoot. Anyway, we hadn't really noticed much of anything except for I'd be working in the kitchen and I'd hear something hit the house. You could look out the windows and you don't see anything. So you don't think much about it, you know. I didn't even think about it could be Bigfoot. And things would be hitting the back side of the house, be hitting the front side of the house. Mostly wherever I was at, that's where something would hit the house. And at one point, it sounded like a car actually rammed the house. But there was never anything out there. We could never find what was hitting the house or never saw anything. So at first, my son and I thought the house was haunted. You know, we live in an old farmhouse, so you don't know who's been here, who's lived here, or whatever. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So after a while, I either got used to hearing the sounds or they just stopped. I don't know. I don't know which. And but then we could be sitting in the kitchen table, and it'd sound like someone opened a car door. And you look out the window, or my son would step outside, and there's never anything around. And we were always hearing noises. And never once entered my mind it could be Bigfoot. And so we'd hear these things from time to time. Few years after, as my grandson got a little bit older, he wanted to do perimeter checks at nighttime around 9 o'clock. They would walk the property line. My grandson was getting into the military stuff by then. And so he wanted to do this kind of stuff. He'd get his BB gun or whatever. He'd dress up, and my husband and him would walk the property line after it got dark. Well, they did this several times without any incident. And so one night they're heading back in. They'd done the perimeter check and they were heading back in. We have a propane tank. That's how we get our heat. And they're by this propane tank, and they heard a howl, unlike anything they've ever heard. My husband's a hunter. He knows howls. He's heard everything, and he goes, "I've never heard this sound before." It was so unnerving that made the hair on the back of his neck rise.
Becky, real quick, have you heard the howl by
No.
chance?
No, I never go outside and do I rarely outside at nighttime unless we're coming home from somewhere.
Because I have a couple of howls. I was hoping maybe if your husband was around, he could.
No,
maybe
he's not
listen
here
in on-
right now.
Okay.
But when the kids saw the footprint, I reported that to BFRO, and they asked us about some howls. The howl that I told them about, and they asked us if we recognized whatever they had, and my husband said it sounded similar.
Mm-hmm.
But it was my husband said it was really close, but he couldn't see anything, but it's dark out. But as soon as they heard the howl, my grandson took off and says to his grandpa, he says, "Watch my back, Pop." Took off and ran into the house, left my husband standing out there all by himself. Now,
that's great.
yeah, my husband said he wasn't scared. It really, other than the hair on the back of his neck, he could feel that rise.
Mm-hmm.
And but he walked in calmly, like nothing had happened. But then the grandson's just constantly talking about it, and so I mean, we didn't do anything. It was like, well, I didn't know who to talk to or anything about what happened. After that, they didn't do any more perimeter checks. Grandson was afraid. There was a time or two, my youngest son, he's in his 30s, and the grandson would take walks down the driveway at nighttime. It's like a quarter-mile long driveway. And I didn't mention this before, and I don't know how you are on UFOs, but
Hey. I have no problem with UFOs.
Well, we've seen UFOs out here too.
Really?
But, yeah. The first one was when my son and my grandson were taking a walk down the driveway, and it's usually 10 o'clock at night. My grandson takes his camera, and in case they see anything, Well, they're get down about halfway down the driveway, and they see this long rectangular thing in the sky. They weren't really sure if it was a UFO or anything until they saw green lights. There was green lights all across and my son said it had been a UFO. It just hovered above the field. And the grandson tried to get pictures with his camera, and but he was shaking so bad. It was scaring him pretty bad. My son, he said it didn't scare him, but my grandson had the camera. I did get a glimpse of what was on the camera at the time, and we tried to get it to download on the computer, but we couldn't. It was one of those old. Um, it was a digital camera, but it was old and it wasn't compatible to my computer, so
Hmm.
we couldn't get it. We couldn't record it. And I don't know whatever happened to the camera, but they saw a UFO. Just it was a long rectangle type UFO in the sky, just with green lights on it. That's the only time they saw it. I saw a UFO coming home from one of the stores in town. There was no other. There was not a. There was a few clouds in the sky. There was no other traffic, and it was a long rectangle silver, a silver that I've never seen before. I've been looking for this silver. I went online looking for this silver, and I couldn't find it. And it hovered in the sky, and then it just disappeared. It was. It was.
Let me ask you, is the color similar? Because I've kind of heard that before. Is the color, you've seen Mercury before, correct?
Yep.
So did it maybe have that color of like a silver Mercury looking?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would have been like that. I was like, and I never thought about Mercury, but yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
But it hovered for I'd say like 10 seconds, and it just faded out. It just disappeared. I've
Interesting.
wanted. I saw one. Um, and I saw him in. I used to live in town. Before we moved out here, and I saw three of them, three UFOs, and it's really weird because every time we saw something, there was never any traffic. I don't know how to explain it. I worked at a store, and it was a slow period, and I was sitting outside, and I just happened to look up in the sky, and I see these three triangles floating around in the sky across the street. And I'd look away, thinking maybe I'm seeing something, and I'd look back, and the whole time, not one customer pulled up in the parking lot. No traffic was going by at all. It's like, this is really weird because it's a busy street. There was always traffic. But I'm watching these things, and they're just hovering above one building, and then it'd move over a little bit. And I don't know, I probably watched it for probably 5 minutes. And then
Really?
they just faded. They just moved off. They just kind of disappeared. It's like, wow, I've never seen anything like. And I never once thought to use my camera to record it. Never once.
Let me ask you this. What kind of what's around that area? Like, is it just more of like a residential, maybe farmland, or is there like a
Is
military
it
base nearby or
there? There are military training centers, but they're I would say a half hour away. Um, but I was on a busy street. It was the business district.
okay.
I saw these UFOs across the street. They hovered between a light. There's like a little mini mall across the street and a pharmacy,
Okay.
and it would hover between the little strip mall and the pharmacy.
About how big would you guess these things were?
They were.
Like
I don't.
like comparable size of a truck, size of a semi.
I don't. No, they were small. From what I could see, there were three little triangles, and they were in a triangle shape.
Okay.
Two triangles at the bottom and one at the top.
Okay. Hmm.
And I don't know how to just. I don't know how to describe it. They weren't big. They were small, and it's like I don't know why. I mean, they would just hover there, and and then they'd move over a little bit, hover there, and then move over. It moved back and forth for a while. I didn't know. It never entered my mind that it was anything but UFOs.
Yeah.
And I so much wish I had my phone. My phone was sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
I never once never once thought to pick it up.
No.
But-
So you emailed and you told me that you had a fascinating encounter with a Sasquatch on your property,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of tell us, how he came about, and then he got kind of cranky with you.
Yeah,
And why
that's
did he
kind
get
of
cranky?
fun.
So I chuckled when I read that. So you are, you said that in your email that your son, your grandkids are getting older, um, and before they stopped really coming around because they're getting their own lives and they're doing their things, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm fearing. I'm a grandpa. I have 3 grandkids. My kids don't come around much anymore. We get to see our grandkids quite regularly, so I'm dreading the time where no one wants to come around. But you said that they had seen one, like, in a ditch, and you sent a picture. Let me send this picture. Show this picture real quick. And so what we're seeing here is we see this object. Now here's the thing. From a lot of the pictures that I've seen, to me, this silhouette does not look like a Sasquatch.
Mm-mm. We
This
thought it was
silhouette,
a bear. Look, it looks like a bear.
but the pointed ears on top of the head, that makes me. I'm not saying this is what it is, but it kind of resembles a dog man.
Huh? I never seen a dog man.
I've never seen one either, but I've seen. I mean, I'll show you another picture that someone had sent me of a dog man. This is a individual that sent me this, and he's right there in the center of the
Mm-hmm.
picture, and you can see the pointed ears, the top of his head. You can kind of see like where his eyes are. This is kind of similar. Again, it's not up as close, but you could see where on either side you see the pointed ears.
Right.
So your grandkids saw this thing, or did they see the Bigfoot in a ditch?
This is what they took a picture of.
Okay.
They said they would walk a little ways and the thing would kind of pace them. When they stopped, it stopped. They'd walk a little bit more and it would like follow them along from where it was at, and every time they stopped, it stopped. And they were starting to feel a little paranoid, so they started coming back in. Um, but my granddaughter was with the grandson when they were out in the field.
Hmm.
We have tree lines all around the field around us.
Mm.
So I almost think the thing lives in the forest preserves around us. I'm not sure. If it doesn't, I don't know where it's staying. I mean, it's got to be somewhere close by.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it. At first, we thought it was traveling through here because we might see it once every year or so, or it's usually in the wintertime. Rarely, we rarely saw anything in the summertime,
Hmm.
um, except until last summer. Um,
Now let
but
me ask
anyway,
you: this visitor, does it have a name?
I've never asked.
Never asked.
I,
Okay. Now you guys just say you heard her say I've never asked, and in her email, Becky, it's extraordinary. So you were. Let me paint this picture real quick. You were at home, feeling kind of melancholy, I would say, because you're
hmm
missing your grandkids, right?
right.
Go ahead and pick it up from there.
It was raining, and this was the time the kids decided they were old enough to stay at their home. They didn't have to come over here anymore, and it's raining. It's just me and the dog here. And all of a sudden, the dog starts barking really crazy, and I get up and I look out the window, and I don't see anything. And I try to calm her down, and she's just going crazy, barking, growling at the front window, and I couldn't understand what she was barking at. You know, sometimes she barks at raccoons or coyotes or whatever out here, but I didn't see anything. And then I go to sit down at the dining room table, and I get this overwhelming feeling. I wonder if Bigfoot's out there. And it's like I did catch a Bigfoot looking in one window a few years back. But anyway, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I've heard people MindSpeak to him, so I'm going to try that. And I said, because the dog wouldn't calm down, I'm figuring Bigfoot's looking in the window. But I can't see him. So I say to him, I said, "You're missing the kids, aren't you?" And a few minutes later, he says, So are you?" And it's like, wow. It really it sent chills to think he would respond to me. And that's basically the only time he's ever said anything to me. But I talk to him all the time. Anytime I feel him around or he lets me know he's here, I'll talk to him.
Now, how does he let you know that he's there?
Well, at first, he'd come up by the picture window. He's invisible, incognito, or I don't know. He doesn't let me see him. But he comes close to the house and the dog goes crazy. She's growling and barking and trying to get out the window to whatever's out there. We can't see anything, but she goes crazy. So a couple times in my mind, I'm asking Bigfoot, if you want to come around, please don't come by the house. The dog goes crazy every time. I asked him to, come by the side of the house or by the cars or something and hit the house over there. Dog might hear it, but she won't sense him as much. And so he has. We have a dumpster on the property, and whenever he comes by, he hits the dumpster really loud. And I look out the window. I never see anything, but I know he's here. He even did it one Saturday when my son was in the kitchen, and we heard a loud bang on the dumpster, and my son said, "Mom, what is that?" And I said, "That's Bigfoot." "Oh, okay." My son believes it. I don't know that my husband would believe that. But, and so I talk to him in my mind. Whenever it's storming, I say, "I hope you're staying safe." I don't want him to get hurt. I don't want, I worry about all the other places where they're calling for tornadoes and that kind of stuff. I always tell him to stay safe. And I've asked him all kinds of questions. I told him he doesn't have to worry about coming around here. No one's going to hurt him. I think it'd freak us out of anything because if we saw him, but I did ask him one time. I said, "How come you don't let me see you?" And he did tell me one time because he thinks it would scare me. And I said, "Thank you." So he's only responded to me like twice that I can remember. But I talk to him all the time.
Now, you also mentioned in your email that there's a time where he got a little cranky with you. And
Oh,
why did he
yeah.
get cranky?
I made cookies one day, and they were awful. I was telling my sister, I said, "I made some lemon cookies, but they don't taste very good. They're really bad." She said, but I talk to her about Bigfoot all the time. So I was telling him about these cookies, and I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Oh, Bigfoot's here," because he pounded on the dumpster, and she says, "Give him some of your cookies." I said, "They're terrible. I don't want to poison the poor guy, you know." And she said, "No, I'll sit him out there, and if he likes them, he'll eat them. If he doesn't, he'll leave them alone." Well, I put about 5 cookies out on a paper plate, and I don't know if with all the other animals we got out here, I don't know if he would get them or if another animal would get them. So the next day, the cookies are gone and the paper plates on the ground, and I in my mind, I don't know if he was around or not, but I said, I hope you got the cookies and the raccoons or whatever didn't get them. Well, I didn't get no response. About a week later, there was some unusual noise, loud noise, banging, and I knew he was mad. I felt that as like it was like he wasn't talking or anything, but he was mad. He was making a lot of noise, hitting the dumpster, constantly hitting the dumpster, and and he seems like he knows when my husband goes to town or something because I'm home by myself most of the time when he does this stuff. And I I tell him I said I hurt my knee. I haven't been able to walk. I couldn't walk for nearly a month. And to calm down, it's like for one thing, I didn't know if you got the cookies. You don't tell me anything. And I didn't even realize I had to put some out the next week. That didn't even enter my mind. And I was just being generous and leaving him some cookies. And but I think I calmed him down. He made me mad, so I hollered at him and scolded him for having a fit. It's like, give me a break, man. You know.
Right.
So I keep him informed of my health, and if I can't walk, and if I'm short on cash and I can't afford to put cookies out, I let him know this stuff. I said, when I have something, I will let you know. Don't come looking for something if it ain't here. If don't have something. So I
Yeah.
think we got that straightened out.
You know, I like to think that he got the cookies. But again, you throw out the probability that maybe it was another animal. It could have been a possum, could have been a raccoon, maybe it could have been some birds. But you put these out in January
Yeah.
per email, so again, it's good probability he did get them. I do know that from listening to some encounters and people that I talk with, when they're around, everything stops. You won't see squirrels or you won't hear squirrels. Deer get out of the area. Anything that is on the menu, which means everything is on the menu, they stop moving, they hide, or they just leave the area when they're around. And so it's a good possibility that he did get the get the cookies. And next time you talk to him, ask him what his name is, because I have a buddy of mine out of East Texas that uh, on a friend of his on their property there's a Sasquatch, and the Sasquatch is trying to communicate with the owner of the house, the husband. But he has definitely communicated with with the wife, and he told the wife that his name is Samson.
Huh.
And there is a group of people that he knows that are in the same area, but miles away. And there are 3 Sasquatch in that area. They're a family unit, and they all know Samson. And so
Huh.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. Again, I take it with a grain of salt, but the person has no reason to lie to me. So
Right.
but yeah, so ask your visitor when you sense him around, ask him just what his name is,
Okay.
and then email me back if he replies back, because I think that'd be fantastic. So,
Sure.
anything else happened after that?
Um, Not that I can really think of. That was the most recent thing. But he does come around about once every 2 weeks, knocks, either hits the dumpster or throws something at the dumpster. I don't know what. I have seen him at nighttime. I never see him during the day. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, my husband goes to bed about 9:30 at night, and all the lights are off in the living room, and I'm sitting there watching TV. The dog will start growling a little bit, and every time the dog growls, I figure he's around. And I saw him standing out the picture window. I don't know if it was his silhouette. He was standing proud. I That's the only way I can explain it. I mean, he looked like he was 12 foot tall
Really?
out the picture window, but our house is up on top of a basement,
Hmm.
and everything's up high.
Yeah.
If you stood outside by the front window, you couldn't see in. A 6 foot tall person couldn't see in the front window.
Wow.
So I call him Bigfoot, and I don't think he wasn't standing right up against the window. He was at towards the front of the yard a little bit, but I could see him from the waist up, and he looked like he was standing proud, like he was showing me, this is what I look like.
Hmm.
But he only shows me it. I only see him at nighttime. I've never seen him during the day, and he doesn't scare me.
That's good. I mean,
I call him my resident Bigfoot.
well, just imagine how long he's probably lived in that area. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this. So, what do you, Becky? What do you think they are?
What do I think they are? I think they're Bigfoots. I
Do you
don't know.
think they're like a flesh and blood? Do you think there's some type of interdimensional ability with them? I mean, because
I wonder if they're interdimensional. Because I don't know. I've read things about how UFOs bring them here,
hmm
but I don't know. I think they've lived here longer than we have, and I don't know if this is a young. I feel like this is an older one, maybe a father or a grandfather or something. If he's got a wife and children, I've never seen them. At first, I thought he just traveled from one area to another, but we do have two forest preserves close by, so he could live in those. I don't know,
hmm
or I don't know if they live underground. I don't know. You watch so many things and read so many things, you really don't know what's going on,
yeah,
But sometimes I feel like they're associated with UFOs, just because this was last summer when I took a video of the orbs dancing in the tree. I
yeah.
took it on my husband's phone because my phone was in the house charging, and I don't really know how to use his phone because he's got an iPhone and I have an Android, and so I sent it from his phone to my phone, so that's probably why people can't see very well on it. But I no one's been able to tell me what these orbs dancing in the tree were, and some people said they could see a Bigfoot in the background, but I wasn't focused on the background. I was looking at the orbs. And
Yeah.
sometimes there was 3 orbs dancing all over the tree. And I got up and I walked all around the tree in the house and the sky looking for where these orbs were coming from. I thought they were a reflection off the house or something. But I never saw anything that that could be doing it. And every once in a while, I would see something silver dash away from the tree or in the vicinity, and it's like I had to record it. I had to try and find someone who could tell me what it was. And some people say it's just some people could see the orbs dancing in the tree, some couldn't. I put it on Reddit,
Mm-hmm.
and some people could see the orbs. A lot of people said they saw a Bigfoot in the background. I didn't see a Bigfoot. I still can't see a Bigfoot when I watch the screen. I look
Yeah.
all over the place, you know.
Yeah.
But I think they say see the shadows might be Bigfoot. It's possible, but
Yeah.
I didn't. But I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on the orbs, and still no one really knows what the orbs are.
Yeah. Well, Becky, I just want to say, we're going to go close this out. I just want to say thank you so much for one, reading my post and answering my post on Reddit. That's a new avenue for me to try to get it in, get new stories and hopefully get people to come on so I can interview them. So thank you so much for answering my post and agreeing to come on the show today.
Sure.
Took us a little bit to get in touch with each other, but again, it's your email was very entertaining to me. I chuckled quite a bit on it. Just, I could just see you, listen, just because I don't have something out there today doesn't mean I'm not going to have something out there later. You don't have to throw a fit, I just kind of chuckled,
Mhm.
So, but again, thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
if next time you sense him and you ask him his name, he answers, email me. I'd love to know what his name is.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just going to
Mhm.
close this out. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
You too.
All right. Well, everybody, that's our show for today. Becky was a phenomenal guest. I loved hearing the encounters. I loved hearing the stories. And this is not the first time that we've heard where someone has, in a way, mind speak with these creatures. Some people say, no, there's no way that happened because that's never happened to me. Again, that never happened to them. So what we need to understand is that these creatures choose who they want to communicate with, and that's it. So, like my buddy Josh from Mysteries Unknown always says, stay prayed up. And as I always like to say, remember, everyone, a legend begins with a sighting. You guys have a great day. I'll talk to you later.
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?